Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Wasted Potential. I'm your host Ellie and I'm here with Agony Aunt Jack.
Hello!
In today's episode, Jack will be answering a number of questions from Yahoo, various Agony Aunts online and our listeners. Before we begin, Jack, would you like to give us the running tally for what you've had to drink so far?
Okay, so it's quite exciting this week. I had half a bottle of something left over. I'll read the label. It says Hardy's Bankside. It's from southeastern Australia and it's a Shiraz. And I had half of that, so that was nice. Then I started on a new one and it was disgusting. I started on this Merlot, Kumala. I've had Kumala before and it was fine, but this one was grim, man. Don't ever drink it. It's from the Western Cape of South Africa, and I thought they would do better. So I had 2 glasses of that, and then I felt like I hadn't drank enough. So I've done now 3 shots of Sambuca, because I've just got some Sambuca here. And I think for the rest of the podcast, I'm going to be drinking some gin, because I've got gin as well. That's what I've drunk today. In units, the Hardy's is 9.8, so about 5 units from that. The Kumala was 10.9, so maybe a unit or 2 from that. And Sambuca, I'm surprised, but 1 shot is a unit. So that's fucked. So I'm like 10 units in, like last week now.
Yes, Jack is well over what the government says you should be drinking on average today. So
yeah, but
please
what does the government know?
What does the government know? Please do not follow Jack's lead. Anyway, shall we get on with some questions?
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so bit different than last time. Some of them are funny, some of them are a bit more serious. Nothing too serious, don't worry. But I thought I'd start with a question that maybe you should be able to answer very easily, I feel. Okay, so is programming hard? Is learning programming languages hard for app developing and website development? I've always wondered, but I have a feeling it'll be a bit hard. I'm more of a designer and like engineering and dynamic shapes and more visual freelance rather than calculations and problem solving. I'm no A student in math or algebra, so is programming hard?
See, I've got an interesting relationship with programming, especially this year, because I haven't needed to do very much programming for my master's. It's all theoretical. And I've found that in my master's year, where I don't have to do programming, I really, really like it. And every time I do a little side project, I'm like, this is good. I should do more programming. But then I kind of have to check myself, because I remember when I had to do programming for coursework and things, and they're like, write this program, and you've got this many weeks, and you've got days left, and it's just not working, and you can't figure out why, and you're really struggling with it, and that is when programming is hard, when it really boils it up and gets difficult. The thing is that my whole master's project is about why people are good at programming and how they're not, so I won't go into too much detail about that. Let's say, for argument's sake, that you're either good at it or you're not. And that is not true because of what the research I've been doing. Usually it's like it goes back years and years to the first toy you were given. That's what starts to build your programming aptitude. But not only programming, all kinds of like STEM subjects. That's science, technology, engineering, and maths. But I digress. No more on the master's project. Now, if programming kind of comes naturally to you, you should be able to sink into like a kind of low-level programming course really, really easily and think, what is all the fuss about? If it doesn't come naturally to you, that's also okay. You need to practice. You need to keep at it. And that is what really builds programming skill, is doing things over and over and over. I was tutoring in Java this year, which means that the first year and second year students come into a lab and they've got like a task to do, and they start writing up and doing it, and like they have to write a program. And sometimes they get stuck and they bang their heads against the desk for 15 minutes. And then they call me over and I pick it out in a second, and they look at me and like, how did you do that? And I'm like, because I've done the same mistake like 10 times over and over and over again. It's like experience builds you in 2 ways. First of all, it makes you think more like a computing scientist. It makes you think about problems and be able to see solutions before you even start typing. But it also lets you like experience those errors and stuff and know how to fix them. So that's a very practical aspect of experience, that you see an error and immediately you know what it is. Like you get an error index out of bounds kind of thing. That means that you've tried to access an element in a list or an array, but it's out of bounds. You've gone too far, which means your counter is probably off. And that's how I know immediately that the counter is off. And I point at their counter and say, your counter is off. And they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, because I've done it so many times. My counters are shit. So that's how I know the counter's off. Let me backtrack a little bit. I would like to make an example now of my aunt, who is not a programmer, would be the first person to say that she's not a programmer, but is kind of a software engineer, and she gets paid a lot of money for that because she knows about the best structures that programs should have and the best way to do database management and stuff. She doesn't necessarily need to write programs for it, but she knows the best way to do it. And then she goes and tells the programmers, and they're like, and they can just do it because she knows what she's talking about. So that's another kind of disjoint of being able to program and come up with really elegant solutions which work really well, and knowing about programming, knowing about the best way to do things. And you can do like an object-oriented course without writing any code. It would be difficult, but you can do it without writing any code. And then you understand how objects work and how inheritance and that kind of thing works, and abstract classes and interfaces and so on. And then when you start writing programs, it's so much easier because you kind of already know the structure. If it's any consolation, I guess this is kind of a final point. When I'm programming, I will usually have like 3 windows open. I will have my coding, like typing space, my IDE open where I write the code. I'll have another window open where I see what the code does. I see the result of it. And then I'll have another window open, which is a web browser where I have like documentation or a tutorial telling me how to code. And I'm going to be a software developer this time next year, so like reading the docs, there's no shame in that. Some people can recall stuff really instantly and just type it out, but that's not really what programming is about. Programming is about understanding how everything fits together and being able to understand what you need to do in a given situation. Even if you don't know exactly how to do it, you can have a kind of general idea of how it works and then look up how to do it. That's the kind of thing that programming is. And that's the problem solving that they teach us at university. They do to a degree teach us this is how you code, but mostly they give us situations and problems and get us to apply a higher level kind of logic to it to understand how programs work. And then finding out the right code to write based on that is just something you do. A robot could do it. So that's my take on programming.
Yeah, because with the problem solving, because this anonymous person says that they prefer things like engineering over problem solving, but problem solving is a massive part of programming, but it's also not something that you need to have as an innate skill. You can very easily learn logic.
Yeah.
So we, in my computing class, we were given the water problem from Die Hard 3, which is you must make exactly 4 gallons from a 5-gallon and a 3-gallon jug.
Mm-hmm.
There are loads of different problems like this. You get ones with rings, you have to do that, whatever.
Yeah, but, Towers of Hanoi, I think they call it.
Yes, that was it. But it's not like, you can't do it easily the first time round. It takes a lot of trial and error, but it gets easier. I think you've just got to be ready to persevere, because doing programming, your code will break 24/7. You'll be up at 4 a.m. with coffee because it's still not working. It'll be working and then you add something and it'll break. It's a nightmare. But you've just got to kind of keep going with it. And I think you'll get somewhere then.
Yeah. Problem solving, if you know how to solve the problem and you don't know how to write it, like the writing is just something that you can figure out how to do. It's actually being able to see what the problem is and figuring it out that is the difficult part. And that's what really makes or breaks a computing scientist or a software engineer, is being able to think logically, think in a problem-solving kind of mindset. And if you can do that, learning how to program is like, it's...
But yeah, so the too long didn't read part of this is just, programming is hard in the same way everything is hard when you get into it, I guess. I mean, you can't really say it's not hard, and you can't really say it is hard, because it's about experience, I think.
Final point I'll make on that is that after over 4 years of this degree, a degree in computing science, I genuinely feel when I look at some programs or some languages or some kind of setup that someone's got, that I know nothing. And you backtrack a bit, and that's not true, because I've built apps and I've built websites and I've built programs and things. I've solved problems, I've written papers and so on. So I know the stuff, but You will always hit an upper bound of where you look at something and you think, I am lost here. I don't get what's going on. I don't understand this. But it's just one more obstacle to overcome, and you keep pushing, and you learn that thing, and you figure out how it works, and then you'll immediately hit another one. I guarantee it. I guarantee you'll hit another problem that you're like, I don't get this at all. But follow the same process, learn the problem, get over it, move on, and yes, you'll hit another one, but you will be learning. If you look back over your shoulder, there's so many things that you've done by this stage that it all kind of becomes worth it. So, yeah, that's good. Okay, programming, done and dusted. How good.
Okay, so let's do this one. Some of these weren't really advice questions. I think these were getting to know you questions. But they've made me curious, so I'm going to ask you them anyway.
Okay.
So here are 3 getting to know our Agony Aunt questions. Number 1, do you believe in soulmates?
Right, soulmates. That's really, fundamentally, I would say, no, I don't explicitly believe in the idea of a soulmate. I don't believe that there is a predefined person that is out there for you that you just need to find. I do, however, believe that there will be someone out there for you. It's not a person, it's not a soulmate, but it is someone who you gel with really well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that does make complete sense. And I think one of my biggest problems with the idea and the concept of soulmates is the focus on it always must be a romantic relationship that completes you, completes me.
That's true, yeah. Yeah.
But, sometimes platonic relationships, in fact, a lot of the times platonic relationships are just as strong as a romantic one. And I think people who are searching for soulmates are often looking at it in the wrong way.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. I think that trying to find someone who defines your life, who makes you part of a whole, I mean, that's, like, not to put too fine a point on it, that's a bit derogatory to yourself, Like, find someone who you are happy with and comfortable with. And, I mean, to say that one completes you, I mean, that's a very kind of a big statement. It's a very kind of, I don't know. But I'll say this. I've been with my girlfriend for nearly 3 years. I'm very, very happy with her. We're going to find a place to move in together and can see myself spending the rest of my life with her, all going well. If that's how you define soulmate, then fine. Yeah, I found a soulmate. But I wouldn't say it like that. I would just say that I've been lucky enough to find someone who I get on with really, really well, and our kind of we're better people with each other. We get on so well. We fit each other's flaws, and we feel happy in each other's presence. And like I said, if that's your definition of soulmate, all well and good. I found my soulmate, but I wouldn't say it like that. I would just say that I found someone who makes me feel good, and I'm very happy to spend a considerable amount of time with. How's that for an answer?
Very good. I like that as an answer.
Oh, good.
I'm sure your girlfriend will as well.
Oh.
And two more just about getting to know you.
Yep.
Slightly, not as serious as soulmates.
Yeah,
but
good.
What is your favourite colour?
My favourite colour is orange. And usually I get like, ugh, orange? But when I say orange, I mean a kind of sunset orange.
Yeah,
like,
I was going to say sunset orange is gorgeous.
The sun is just going down and all the clouds are full of this glow. That kind of orange. It makes me feel so warm and so happy. It's a bit like a kind of a fireplace fire kind of orange, but not as angry.
Yeah. Not as angry. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot more exciting than mine. My favourite colours are red and black.
Red and black.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got over my emo phase. And our third getting to know you question. What is your favourite fruit?
My favourite fruit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, that's a tough question. Growing up, I ate a lot of fruit. In fact, we had fruit trees in our garden, and you could just go out and pick one and eat the fruit. Now, that's probably my favourite fruit. It's the one that we had the most of. We would call it a nachi, but that's an Afrikaans spelling, as I discovered when I came to the UK. I said, ooh, I'll have a nachi, I'll get a nachi. And people looked at me and said, what the fuck are you talking about, Jack? And a nachi is basically like a tangerine or a satsuma kind of thing. Usually a bit bigger, more like the size of an orange, but easier to peel. I don't know. That's the ones that we grew anyway. So yeah, that's probably my favorite, like a tangerine or satsuma kind of thing. Although I do like an orange. Oh God, Ellie, this is a hard question.
You gotta choose.
Because also, I really like a passion fruit.
Oh yeah,
passion fruit is so nice. Oh God,
it is.
One time my girlfriend said that pomegranate tastes like dirt, but a good kind of dirt, and that really threw me. But anyway, that's just an aside on pomegranate. I don't really like pomegranate. It's okay, like it's fine, but it's not my favourite.
Choose a fruit, Jack. Choose a fruit.
I'm gonna go with nachi, which is a bit like a satsuma.
That's a good choice.
Yes.
Mine's mangoes.
Oh, mangoes is good. Though I've never had a good mango in Britain. They're always a bit bad. Yeah, I've tried getting them. Like I get the big green ones out of the Morrisons, and they're just not quite as good as the ones we got in Zambia. Which, I mean, that's cheating a bit, but
yeah, just a bit.
A mango is good, to be fair, but I think I lean more towards citrus or kind of citrus fruits.
All right, back onto asking for advice.
Yeah.
My boyfriend and I have a good relationship, but there are times when he dons a Darth Vader mask and refuses to answer to anything other than Darth Kickass. What should I do?
This sounds a little bit similar, like not quite as like bad, but similar to a situation I have with my girlfriend. I'm a massive nerd. Well, I don't know if this is a nerd thing to do or just a really soppy thing to do, but I read to her. I'll read books to her. We read through a story. Currently, we're reading the Skullduggery Pleasant series because those are great. And every time I get to a new chapter, I read it out as Chapter 18. And she goes, nope, give it its proper name. And I go, Chopper 18. Because she insists that every chapter be referred to as a chopper. And I don't really know why, but that is just something that I kind of deal with. Similarly, there's a character in those books called Billy Ray Sanguine, and she insists on him being referred to as Tangerine Boy throughout the book. Like Tangerine Boy drew his dagger. I'm like, okay, I'll read that then. I think, if it doesn't really put you at too much of a disservice, just call them Darth Kickass, humour them. I feel like your boyfriend would be sensible enough that if you tell them, look, okay, I'm not feeling great today, I'm not really in the mood, I don't want to call you Darth Kickass, that they would be like, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. I'll take the Darth Vader mask off, or maybe I'll keep it on, but you don't have to call me Darth Kickass, kind of idea. I feel like that's a hallmark of a good relationship, of you have these running jokes, but if you say, look, I'm not in the mood for joking, that the other person can kind of just come to terms with it and say, okay, no, that's fine. I won't draw it out any longer. But usually, I mean, calling someone Darth Kickass, I mean, that's not too big of a deal, right? Just do it. Just humour them. You'll be happier, I think.
And think that you've got something in the bank, so you can start doing something really weird.
Aha.
And they can't argue against it. So, keeping on that track, I've fallen for a girl, but she's an anime character. Is it really a bad thing?
Okay. It depends what you want from that relationship. If it's someone who understands you and is nurturing and loving, you're in the wrong place. Because anime characters can't really do that for you. Maybe they can for other people and you can pretend it's you, but I don't know, that feels a bit sad. I think if you're that attached to fictional characters, and don't get me wrong, it's okay to be attached to fictional characters. I would die for Garrus, but if you're that attached to fictional characters and you feel like the relationship should be reciprocated, then I think you're a little bit like on the wrong plane of existence. Delusional is the word I'm looking for. Like an anime character, it's fine to love anime characters. There's always going to be people that think you're weird, because some people just don't like anime because they're prejudiced. But if you like an anime character, that's fine to like an anime character. It's fine to be really, really into an anime character as long as it doesn't get creepy. But if you are kind of expecting a healthy relationship from that, you might have a problem because they're not real. And that's the kicker. Anime characters aren't real. They don't even exist on this plane of existence like actors do. I mean, their voice does, but they're just something that some guy has drawn. Bottom line, falling for a girl who's an anime character is not in and of itself a bad thing. It's okay to have crushes. Just don't expect it to develop or go any further, okay? Because it won't, because they're not real.
Yeah, and I think the important thing is don't try and use it to substitute real people, if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh my god, yes. Don't. Like, you need real people in your life.
Jack managed to answer a question without mentioning his girlfriend. We're all very proud of him.
Yeah! She hates anime.
There we go. Okay, shall we go on to another one that's also love-related?
Please do. More love-related, yeah.
Will I ever find someone who loves me? How?
Will I ever find someone who loves me? Probably. I'm sure that actually, now you're probably thinking romantically, but I'm sure that in your life right now there is a multitude of people who do love you. And that is something that we shouldn't take for granted. You may not be in a romantic relationship with any of them, but I think that you will be having that effect on quite a lot of people that you know. So getting that out of the way, let's move on to the kind of romantic side of it. I think, like I said before, I don't explicitly believe in soulmates, but I think that there is someone out there who will appreciate you for who you are. And it's not a someone, it's just someone, you know. It's not a particular
It's not
person.
a someone, it's just someone.
Yeah, it's not a person, it's just people, you know? It's not one individual that, yes, this is the person. It's just a person that lines up with what you think and what you feel and so on. And that's the beauty of it. It's just people. To be fair, like, if you expected that there was a soulmate, there was one individual person who you can live the perfect life with forever, and there's somewhere in this globe of how many are we, like 8 billion people now?
Yep.
You're shit out of luck, I'm afraid, because you're only going to meet, like, a fraction of that. And so chances are you'll never meet your soulmate, if that's what you believe. But no, I think that there are loads of people out there that you are compatible with and that you can work well with, and that will eventually love you. Now, as to the how part, that is a bit loaded, but my opinion would be to not force it, to not try too hard, to just accept people for who they are, and they will do the same, you know. Treat people with respect and kindness and compassion, and you'll find that people will start to do the same with you. And sometimes, when it's particular people, it will go a bit further than that. And you'll find that there are so many things you have in common and so much that you like to talk about. And then you'll discover one day when you're like talking to them that, hey, this is really, really nice. And even then, I would say, don't overthink it. Don't do too much about it. Don't like decide that, yes, this is the person, this is the one. I would say at that point, you, like, even if you consider it, don't think too much about it. Just keep treating them like a decent human being. Just keep treating them normally. If you want to take them on a date, take them on a date. But don't make that as kind of your predestined path that, yes, we're meant to be together kind of deal. That's the best way to get yourself shut out as a weirdo. Just treat people as you feel like you should treat them, you know, with respect, with care and compassion. And I think you'll find that people will treat you in the same way. And eventually there will be these people that kind of surface as like the ones that you're really close with, the ones that you really like spending time with. And do, by all means, spend more time with them. But don't force it. Don't try and make it like this is something that is meant to be, because that's not really a concept that exists.
Yeah.
You just need to treat people well, and there will be those that will really respond well to that. And that's a good indication of people that you might be with in the future. That's what I'll say.
Yep, I think that's a perfectly fair comment. Just kind of don't hunt down people to love, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's terrible. Like, don't do that.
You know, let it happen. You're allowed to, like, look for dates. I'm not going to say don't ever use Tinder. But don't force it with love.
How good is Sambuca, though?
I don't know. I've never really had it.
Oh, you're missing out. Do you like licorice?
Yes.
Oh, you'd love Sambuca then. It's like licorice, but liquid and also alcoholic, so that's nice.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
All right then, on to the next question.
Yes.
If my computer stops dying. I'm 24 and I've started a new job. The office is filled with loud, confident extroverts and I can't compete. I've always been introverted and like to work quietly, but I really want to succeed in my career. What can I do to make sure my boss knows I'm here without yelling?
Wow. Oh. That's a really tough one. I think once again I'm going to have a personal anecdote about this. Last summer, I was working at a software engineering company. Well, it wasn't really a software. It doesn't matter. I was doing software engineering for this company. My girlfriend was doing the same thing because we're on the same course. Now, I was working at like a private chauffeuring company, and they're built very, very much on their software that they can like develop and stuff. The software is what drives the company, which is a really great atmosphere to be a developer in, because everyone kind of looks to you for help, which is nice. It's a bit daunting at first, but it's really nice. There was about 10 developers plus interns, so a close-knit group. Being extroverted doesn't really make a difference there. Everyone's kind of under scrutiny in a sense. You're all part of the machine that makes it work. My girlfriend, on the other hand, she went to work at a place which paid almost twice what I was earning. She was working at a big money bank. Their major tech center is in Glasgow, which is where we live, and so she was there. She was part of the machine. And like that is basically an extroverted community. The kind of financial side of it, of the stockbrokers, the kind of Wolf of Wall Street attitude, it seeps into the very core of the organization. And she's not like that. I guess the way she handled it was she really worked hard at what she did. The area that she was put into, she just did the research, put in the extra work, and brought as much as she could to the table. And that's how she got recognized. The thing is that with that job, there's really tangible evidence that you're doing well. Like, you can be a loudmouth and be really up yourself and very extroverted, but if you don't produce good programs and stuff like that, then, well, you're stuffed either way. Whereas she wasn't up herself, she wasn't extroverted, but she was able to produce the content, so it worked out fine for her. People acknowledged her as a useful addition to the team. I don't know what kind of job this person is talking about, but I guess my fundamental advice would be to produce the content, put all your effort in to produce something that is useful and tangible and real that people will use and people like be impressed with. And that is how you make the difference. That's how you get noticed. It's by doing good work. If the work is centered around being an extrovert, if you have to be extroverted to be able to produce good content, then maybe the job isn't for you. And that sounds hard because jobs are difficult to get these days in a lot of industries. But I mean, that's all I can really say about it. Thankfully, I've always been in a career where there is a benchmark that you have to adhere to be able to succeed, and that is being able to produce good software, being able to be a good programmer, and all the other stuff like talking yourself up or being really sociable and charismatic. It's just an aside. If you're good at what you do, people will hire you. People will acknowledge that you can do stuff. If being charismatic and vocal is core to that career, that makes it more difficult. It means that there isn't a fundamental benchmark. But I don't know. Without more information on the job, I don't know if I can say much more about it. But that is what I would say, is put your heart and soul into the work and work really hard at it and prove your worth as someone who can get the job done. And I think that speaks a lot of volumes. You know, that says more than you'd be able to say as an individual. That's what I think.
Show that you're capable through your work, not through your words.
Yeah, show don't tell, in a sense.
Exactly.
Prove that you're capable of presenting decent stuff, and people acknowledge that. I think a good manager will acknowledge that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, good. Another shot.
Yeah, you mentioned your girlfriend. Drink away. Okay, here we go. Jack, do you have any advice on how to deal with a relationship that you regret having, yet still miss them at the same time?
This is a hard one, Ellie.
It is a hard one.
I'll have to say something on it, though. You, like, as much as relationships are dictated by emotions and feelings, you still need to be pragmatic, you know. You need to be sensible about who you're literally getting in bed with, about who you're throwing your lot in with. And I think it's always going to be a given that, well, for a relationship to exist, there have to be good parts. There have to be things that make it work. But if it falls apart, I think you always remember the good. And as bad as it sounds, try and remember the bad. Try and remember what made things not work out. Try and remember the reasons why this cannot be, I would say. And, you know, I think you can take a lot from that. You can probably apply that to new relationships or relationships that you would actually want to be in. Like, for example, an element of trust is really, really important in a relationship. And if you think about a previous relationship where you got along really well and you really liked the person and, I don't know, they were exciting and endearing, but you couldn't fully trust them. Think about that, and then think about a relationship where maybe it's with someone who isn't so exciting, someone who prefers to take things in a slightly broader lane, but you can trust implicitly. And for me, that speaks volumes. Like, that is the relationship that I would rather have, you know. That kind of thing. It's a difficult question. And
it is.
Yeah,
it is.
There's a lot of ways to read it, but...
And also because this person recognises that it maybe wasn't a good relationship because they regret having it. And so, you know, my anecdote time.
Yeah, good, yes.
I've been in a relationship that I regret now. I regret dating him. I regret staying with him for as long as I did. And, you know, I don't want to be back in the relationship, but you still miss it. And, you know, some days I find myself missing him. And I was trying to kind of figure out why, and it kind of hit me that you miss small little things that maybe you got. So, for example, I missed the fact I could talk to him about my problems. And I've got over that by talking to someone else about my problems. You know, you missed the physical contact. So you just have more physical contact with other people. It's kind of like sometimes when you miss someone in a relationship that you know you regret having, it's because you miss things that happened.
Mm.
And I think you've just got to kind of figure out what you miss about it. Is it them, or is it the relationship and things that happened in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Nostalgia is really powerful, but the thing with nostalgia is that you only remember the good. You remember the good stuff about a relationship. You think that was really nice, but then if you think on it more, if you think pragmatically and think about how the relationship actually went, you'll remember that there was stuff that wasn't so great, and that is probably the reason why you broke up.
And that you regret having it.
Exactly. The reason why, if you have regrets, something went wrong. And it went wrong enough that the whole thing fell apart. And that's not the kind of thing that you need in your life, you know?
Yeah.
Like I said, nostalgia is very powerful. You remember the good. So to bring yourself down to earth, try and remember the bad. Remember what was not right. Remember what you don't need in your life. And that will probably guide you and make you realize that although there were good times in that, and there are bound to be good times in any relationship, there will be things that overshadow that, the reasons why you fell apart, that kind of thing. Yeah. I hope you've got something lighter for me now, Ellie.
Ooh, and I've got something darker, but we'll go lighter. Well, not darker, but, you know, we'll go lighter. Just ease the tension a little bit.
Yeah, I poured more of that wine against my better judgment, so that's good.
Maybe you can even mention your girlfriend in this one.
Yeah, more shots.
If a 2-year-old hands you a toy phone, do you answer it?
Yes. You humour them. 2-year-olds are all about their imagination. Like, you embrace that and you get them to develop it, and that's how you create a person who is more than just rules and regulations. You nurture their imagination. That's what I think. So if a 2-year-old gives me a phone, I answer it. I say hello, and usually the 2-year-old does the voice back, right? The 2-year-old
Yep.
is the person on the other end of the line, even though that's not possible, but it still is. So the 2-year-old becomes another person, and that is the absolutely fundamental purpose of imagination. In fact, the stem of all imagination is becoming other people. It's thinking in other people's shoes, thinking about things that can't possibly happen from your personal standpoint, So nurture that, embrace it, and enjoy it, because, man, 2-year-olds come up with some crazy stuff, and it's great. I say that now, personal anecdote, I don't think I'm talking about my girlfriend here, which is nice, but I'm talking about my family, so that's different. I'm the second born of six Waynes, 6 children, if you're not Scottish. So I've dealt with 2-year-olds. In fact, after all of us had grown up a bit, we almost adopted as well, because there was a kid that my sister stole. That's a whole nother story. But he was living in our house for quite a long time, and he was great as well. And I looked after him as a teenager. And imagination is something that you cannot replicate. In fact, that is what is missing from any kind of artificial intelligence that they're trying to build today. You can't replicate imagination. Imagination is like its own thing that cannot be encoded. It can't be predicted or developed or produced. It is something that only comes from minds which are imaginative. And if your 2-year-old hands you a phone and you say, 2-year-old, that's not real, you need to think more pragmatically about the world, then you've broken some imagination. And imagination is really, really valuable. So hell yes, you answer that phone and you see what the hell that 2-year-old is thinking, because it could be great. It could be amazing. Imagination takes you on these really crazy journeys, and if you ignore it completely, then you're missing out, my friend. You need some imagination in your life, and the best way to do that is by engaging with people who are trying to promote it. And that 2-year-old is doing exactly that. Because, look, we know the phone is not real. But if you imagine it is, the journeys you could go on based on that phone call are insurmountable. Fuck, I dropped
Exactly.
the bottle.
Oh dear.
That's my opinion on imagination.
It's a very good opinion, but I have to think my favourite answer was what someone put, which was no, could be a telemarketer.
Oh no.
Right, I've got one last question for you.
Yeah.
Bit more serious.
Oh boy.
Probably not as bad as that relationship
Okay.
one. Dear Auntie Jack.
Yes.
How do I stay motivated when times are tough and things just don't seem to be going my way?
I suffer from this a lot. Part of that stems from, as I've said before, I don't do a lot of programming on my master's project. It's very theoretical. It requires a lot of thinking and reading and writing up whatever's in your head kind of deal, compared with what I'm used to, which is writing something tangible and that you can run and either works or it doesn't. And obviously, we've already highlighted in this particular podcast the problems with that. If it doesn't work, then you're fucked. But also, getting from that mindset to a point where you have to do things, but you don't necessarily have an end goal. Oh, that is so difficult. That's what I found. I guess to stay motivated, you think about what it is you're aiming to achieve. For me, it's a master's degree, which is, not gonna lie, that's a pretty big deal, man. And I met with my supervisor on Tuesday. He's talking about getting this work published. We can aim for ISA, which is like a conference. And that's whoa, that's a big deal, man. That is something that is significant and tangible and real. But the thing is that it's just not as close as getting the program to run,
Yeah.
I guess the way to motivate yourself is to think of what am I aiming to achieve with this? There is something that you're trying to achieve. And usually that achievement has some kind of a deadline. Like, for example, if it's an essay, you've got to write the essay for a submission date. If it's more like a broader idea, you want to get it done as soon as possible because you get to maximize on the output of that as soon as possible. That kind of thing. I don't know, if you're an artist and you were doing commission for someone, you finish the drawing as quickly as you can so that you get money from them. There will always be some kind of a tangible output, like money or a degree or some free time, which is what I've kind of been working towards. I think that if I read this paper and I understand it and I can write up my thoughts on it, then I get to play Breath of the Wild. You know, that's the way it goes for me. I won't play Breath of the Wild until I'm comfortable that I've done all the work that I'm supposed to do. So I guess there's two factors to that. There's one, looking at the goal that you're hoping to achieve, and two is self-discipline, about working towards your own goals and having your own rewards for that, and not just rewarding yourself for doing nothing. Because I think a lot of the kind of studenty memes is like, oh, I've done revision for 5 minutes, now I can eat that ice cream I've been saving. And I'm like, that's funny because it does kind of apply, but also it's not the right message to be giving to students. You know,
Yeah.
Students still do need to put the effort in, and 5 minutes isn't quite enough.
No.
Sorry if that's you, but you've got to put the effort in, and then you can reward yourself.
You can do an hour and reward
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly. An hour. An hour is more than nothing. And as long as you feel that you've genuinely done an hour and you've not been like flipping between your reading and social media in that time, you can reward yourself. And God, the feeling of being rewarding to yourself when you don't feel like you're compromising is so good, man. It's so good. Trust me on that and get in on that. That's what I would say. What was the question again?
The question was, how do I stay motivated when times are tough and things just don't seem to be going my way?
Yeah, okay. So I've kind of answered it. Yeah, good. Long story short, focus on the goal that you're trying to achieve. When things are not going your way, it is tough. It is really difficult. And I certainly appreciate that. I appreciate how difficult it is to try and get things done when everything you're trying to do seems like it's literally fighting you. But press on and keep working at it, and there will be an easier time once it's finished. Because looking up at the mountain and thinking, I'll deal with it later, is nowhere near a comparison to standing at the top of the mountain and looking down thinking, I fucking did that, and no one can take that away from me. You know, that's what I would say to that. That's the kind of the short answer, I guess.
One of the things that always keeps me pushing, especially when like times are tough and nothing is going right, is the old saying that, you know, when you hit rock bottom, the only way to go is up. Sometimes you will go through really hard periods. Sometimes nothing will go your way, from the smallest things, like, I don't know, your grocery shop was terrible or your bag split, to the biggest things, like you don't get a job, you don't get the interview, you don't get the university place. And I get it, I've been in all of those situations. So sometimes life sucks and it is hard to get the motivation, but like you said, it's all about looking at goals and bigger pictures. But it's also, sometimes it's really hard to do that. Sometimes it's hard to think, in 2 months' time I've got this and it'll be better, or in 2 months' time I'll have done this, or whatever. Sometimes you just have to think in terms of smaller increments of time. So if you look at your week and you say, I've had a bad week because, you know, you didn't get the interview, think about the last 10 minutes. Think about what happened in those last 10 minutes, because a lot of the time, those last 10 minutes will have been good. And if you think about your life in smaller increments of time, so 10 minutes, 5 minutes, you find it's a lot easier to be positive, because you will end up having a lot more good 10 minutes than bad 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I've never really thought of it like that, of the last 10 minutes kind of aspect. I guess if I was in that position, part of the consolation is just an acknowledgement that it is a big deal, you know.
Yeah.
And these things are big deals. Consider that your acknowledgement from Drunk Jack. It's hard to handle. It's hard to manage. And the fact that you are coping, and the fact that you feel like you're coping, I hope that goes a long way in making you feel better about it. But yeah, look to the last 10 minutes. Usually they would have been good. You would have got something done. You would have had a good conversation or felt better about yourself. And really maximize on those times, because you're at your best when you feel good about yourself. It's very sad to me that people feel bad about themselves, because everyone has achievements that they've made that may, and like, this is no exaggeration, they may pale in comparison to your peers. And I've felt that so often, because there are people on my course that have like published apps on Google Play, or they've been mentioned in some kind of educational paper that was written tangentially about them. But that doesn't really matter. Like, as long as you feel good about yourself and what you're doing, that is what's significant. That's the important bit. And that's had to be the philosophy that I've come to rely on, because on a computing science course, there are some ridiculous things that people do. Like, it's not even possible that you're doing this at the age that you are and the time that you have. But, I mean, good for them. That's not you. You need to deal with things as they come. And you need to appreciate that things are going to be difficult, but you can weather through it if you work as your best person. And the way to get to your best person is, like Ellie said, look at the last 10 minutes. How was that? Was it good? Good. Maximize on it. Progress based on that. That's what I would say.
And I think that's a very positive note to leave this podcast on.
You are worth it. Yes.
If you'd like Aunt Jack to answer any questions, tweet them to us at SilverCrow Inc. Send us an ask on our Tumblr at SilverCrow Media, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube, SilverCrow Media, and also follow all of the aforementioned social medias. So we shall see you in the next episode.
Yeah,
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.